And this is probably not going to be acceptable to a lot of people, but this is what I developed that I found that worked for me. Okay? It's a lot simpler. I found that the template that we were using was intimidating to me, and I just found it ominous to look at that template and have to fill in all those things. So I basically just came up with a narrative of the things I was going to do and a checklist so that as I was going down each class period, I could check off the things as I did to make sure that I was doing. Because I was having a lot of problems with things like the little housekeeping chores, the taking roll, and that sort of thing. I have my objectives up here, quantifiable, I have a guiding question, I have materials, and I actually excluded the modifications portion because we didn't have any students in my classes, fortunately, that required any special modifications. All right, so at the end of the day, I think I made a lot of improvement in several areas. First of all, lesson planning and long-term planning. As you can see in that presentation I just gave you, I did feel like I made a lot of improvements in just the shape and nature of my lesson plans, being more able to use them in something that I was willing to make without too much difficulty. All right, variation in activities, and here's where I want to take you actually out to my portfolio for a second. That's not the page I wanted. All right. Okay, so this is for NCSS theme number 5 for individuals, groups, and institutions. And in this narrative here, I have included several different types of activities that I included. And this was at a point after I had kind of made the transition from just giving PowerPoint notes to including other sorts of activities. So let me show you some examples of these different things I did. At the beginning of one of the periods, when we were talking about the Middle Ages, I assigned a quick write for the kids to write about the Magna Carta and the importance of the Magna Carta still to us today, some of the changes that are lingering on and how it kind of influenced our government. So that's one example of a quick write that I gave for them. I actually developed, and this was something that I showed you guys as my mini lesson. I developed a nice feudalism lesson, which included one of my favorite activities of the semester, which was feudalism role-playing. So the kids actually got to each take a role as a knight or a squire or a wench or something and act that out. So I thought that was a fun activity. This is an interesting activity that I developed in which students were given short snips of first-hand accounts from the Crusades. And then they were followed up by a set of questions that kind of helped to lead the kids through an analysis of these primary sources. So I thought that was a good activity as well. I also developed a number of web quests throughout the semester. This is one, a Renaissance art web quest, where I gave the kids a number of websites dealing with Renaissance works of art and literature, actually, and kind of led them through with a set of questions to help them learn how to search through things on the internet and to answer questions about the material that we were learning about. And I also started to develop study guides to give the kids. One of the problems that I had early in the semester was that I was afraid to give the kids work to do at home. And so I had to cover everything in class, which really strained me for time. So I started to develop these study guides that I would give the kids at the end of the period, and sometimes I would even give them some time at the end of the period to work on these things, just to kind of get a head start on what we were going to be doing in the next class. So again, I took this and went through the textbook and sort of in chronological order developed a set of questions that would help to lead the kids through the activity, through the material that we were learning about. All right. I also think I improved my rapport with the students. At the beginning of the semester, I didn't know any of their names, and in fact, my big breakthrough in the semester was probably learning all of their names, because I found I was really able to develop personal relationships with the kids once I was on a first name basis with them. And by the end of the semester, they weren't intimidated by me anymore, and they were throwing me parties when I left, and I was really, I think it was a sad parting when we left each other. I took ownership of the class, and this has a lot to do with autonomy as well. Once my cooperating teachers started to leave the classroom, I felt this sense of ease that, it was no longer me just putting on a show for my cooperating teacher, that it was finally my class, and that I could handle it as I wanted to. All right, and I also really think I worked and improved on my technological proficiency. This is another place I want to take you back to portfolio for a second here. And this is something I was really proud of. I am not an extremely technological proficient person, so it really took a lot of work for me in a school that didn't have a lot of resources in terms of technology. As Hunter said, we often in the mornings would wheel out all the LCD projectors that the school had to offer. All the student teachers monopolized them. But I did a lot of things like developing the movies was a lot of fun for me. It's something that was intimidating at the beginning because I had no experience editing video whatsoever, but I ended up having a lot of fun developing the movies. Google Earth was another thing that I just found to be a blast to do with the kids. They absolutely love Google Earth, and I use that especially in my geography classes to really zoom in on different places in the world that we're talking about and to help them learn about those places and to visualize them. And you can actually, in Google Earth, zoom all the way down to the ground level, and in some places you get a 360 view of what you're looking at. The Action Research Project was a project where I assigned the kids to do PowerPoint presentations on some of the Chinese dynasties that we were talking about. In fact, I can show you an example. One of the presentations that the kids developed. So they did a really nice job with this. I had various criteria like the time period and important leaders that they all had to fulfill, as well as working on including some specific design elements that we talked about, like not cluttering up a page and having just a limited amount of stuff and having high contrast between the text and the background. So that just gives you an idea of that project. I already mentioned Google Earth. And one of the things that I think is worth mentioning is the fact that I used online testing as the semester moved on. We had a Blackboard site for this district, much like Tech has a Blackboard site as well, that we were able to load all of our tests on the Blackboard and have the kids get out their laptops when the classroom's set and take their tests online. And the advantage of that is that it gives them instant feedback on how they performed on the test, and it gives the instructor instant feedback on how the grades were. I think that was a definite improvement in my technology use as well. All right, my relationship with the CT improved a lot over the course of the semester. I said that I had difficulty kind of connecting with him at the beginning of the semester because of his personality. I think we had kind of clashing personalities, but as the semester went on, we became very comfortable with each other. We became good friends, and I think we're going to continue to be good friends in the future. And my overall comfort level in the classroom just improved. Here's some pictures at the end of me with my students. All right, now, top 10 things I learned from student teaching. Number 10. There's an international paper embargo that wasn't reported in the news. Both schools where I worked this year had extreme paper shortages, and that became a real challenge with planning some of my activities because there was a real restriction on how much stuff you could copy. So you either had to buy paper yourself or develop ways to reduce your paper usage. And that includes things like doing tests online instead of using paper copies of it. Number 9, group work does not give the teacher a day off. This is something I thought at the beginning of the semester might be an easy way to give myself a little relaxation in class, or just assign a group activity and have them work on it in class. And I come to find out that you need to actually be walking around the classroom and making sure that they're getting the right answers